rise around.
Yeah, we're so smart.
To break it down like a wall.
The coffee talking.
Well, actually, they didn't really win the game at all.
Surviving no way knows. Surviving no way knows. Stephen Rock without it down. Got the game all figured out. They know it all.
Yeah, that's right. The Survivor Know-It-Alls are back together.
Woo!
An iconic duo, if there
Wow.
ever was one.
Great pairs of all time.
One of
just
the
like
great
Stephen and
pairs.
JT.
Yeah.
Nobody
I
could
said
be
this
that
last night, but honestly, like, haven't we like gotten to the point where it should be Steven and Rob, not Steven and JT?
Which
What
Rob
has
are you
JT
talking
even
about?
done lately?
Rob Zabachnik?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, once you're cemented as a legend, that's just it. You're done. You don't have to keep like proving yourself once you're a
Sure,
legend.
JT won, but how many podcast awards does he have? You don't have a better resume than JT.
I think that was called hubris, though, right? Like as soon as you say I could be as good as Stephen and JT,
Okay.
like, the gods are going to cast you down.
That's
Nobody
it.
could be that good.
That's it. I want to take a little exception with the, like, it's so easy to come out of last night's episode and be like, oh, Drew, the hubris. Jeff, even on the, on Fire podcast, they're like, that's the thing, hubris. Was hubris really Drew's downfall? Like, isn't the hubris more of like a thing in the edit? Like, I feel like that the players weren't necessarily like, oh, like that's what we have to take out Drew because he got too cocky.
Well, I guess the idea is that you lose sight. Like if you start projecting too far forward, and that was, I think, my takeaway. But if you start projecting too far forward into the end game, then you do maybe lose sight a little bit. And it's hard when you're so close. You're like, you stop thinking about this vote and you start kind of trying to manage that final three and how you're going to win that. That said, to say, for him to say after this vote, I think I can make it to the final, the finals. Like that's literally one vote he's talking about. He's talking about the final five vote.
Yeah.
Like, I think if like my alliance of three manages to make it into the final five, we've pretty much got it under wraps. If anything, like that's him trusting his allies. What an old school virtue. And I have to say, Rob, I was very sad to see Drew go. I think he was a very polarizing figure. I heard like a lot of emotion. People were investing in Drew, a lot of their own emotion. And I really love Drew.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like that Drew has gotten a bad rap. I see a lot of people like dancing on his grave. And I just feel like that, like, if he's not your favorite, okay, you have other people you like more. Okay, I'm happy. I love that for you. But, I don't think that Drew did anything that warranted people to like, hate him.
I feel like because he's so, I mean, a lot of people said he was like he was like pretentious. I didn't feel that at all. I thought he was like so unapologetically his like nerdy, geeky, booky self, and I know maybe people will disagree with him. And so much of that is like your own subjective read of that. But I loved him. I thought he was a very fun narrator for the show. I thought he had great confessionals, kind of like laying it all out that injected a lot of his personality, into them, his sort of like Eeyore-ish kind of like, oh my God, once again. And at the same time, I thought a very strong strategist with, a lot of both as a part of this core Reba alliance that has dominated the game. And then with a lot of different like side alliances, Emily obviously being the salient one, Jake to a lesser degree. And I think we need to talk about why Drew lost. If we, can we do that without getting a lawsuit?
Yeah.
But I thought he played a very interesting, very good game. And I was sad to see him go.
Yeah, sad to see him go. Look, I just feel like that. I feel like he got like a disproportionate amount of hate online for somebody that did like what he did. Like he did not say like, as far as I saw, like a disparaging remark against anybody. And I see a lot of people like being. But you know what? Look, I all I'm telling you is, how I feel. Everybody do what you want.
A lot of the time too, when like the guy who like seems like he's kind of, or the person who seems like they're kind of in charge is voted out. Like I do think there's always like that moment of I remember when not that I was in charge in Cambodia at all, but I remember when I was voted out of Cambodia, like it seemed like every thread on the internet was like, Stephen sucks, here's the proof. And I do think and I remember when Rick was voted out of whatever that season that was, of Edge of Extinction, like the second time. There was so much like, oh, Rick sucks. It was just that sort of like sense of like this person.
I think it was a little bit more Chris Underwood sucks. I kind of feel like at the point that he went out, I think that people were like, oh man, Rick. Like, I didn't like Rick, but that would have been better than this.
Well, that actually is true. The Rick's, you're right. The finale of that season did sort of redeem Rick, because people had gotten so in their heads that Rick was going to win, and this was sort of his march to victory, that when he and people were rebelling against that. So like when he lost, I think actually it was a huge boost to his. But sometimes you do see this like outpouring of frustration or loathing when someone is voted out. Like it's like there's this room to like hate on them for a moment. And then, as
Jake once said, people want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah. But I think next week nobody's going to be thinking about Drew. So
okay. Yeah. All right. Carson is in the chat, says Drew had a way of saying things that made you pause and really consider what he was saying. He was a fantastic narrator.
Wow, that's I get like that's a generous assessment from like the potential rival for an all-star spot.
No, I think Carson's feeling secure. I think he's secure.
Or maybe right. That's like the top dog who can like afford to be generous to the
thriving puzzle salesman, Carson Garrett.
Yeah, congratulations.
He says y'all's iconic alliance ship name is Fisher-Nino. Are we buying that?
Fisher-Nino, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you want to talk about why you felt like that things ended up going sour for Drew?
Well, let's talk about the vote first. I mean, it seems like the sort of, Drew was gunning for Julie again, which to me was absolutely the sensible move. And then it did seem like a lot of people just didn't want to rubber stamp that because, so many people now are thinking of like what their Survivor resume is. Very funny scene where Jake is, decreeing this is going to be his big resume point, and like literally everybody else is making the exact same move at the same time. If anything, for Jake, voting Julie would have been the more, counterintuitive move. That would have been the actual resume point, is voting out Julie at that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely want to get into Jake, but here let's talk through Drew, and then I have some things I want to talk about with Dee as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So you were going to tell us about like why you felt like that Drew got voted out.
Oh, I know. I just wanted to talk about it. I didn't have any like grand insights yet. I'm waiting for you to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like that for Drew, like he was really just on the wrong side of this Reba alliance. It really was like a tug of war between Dee and Austin, I feel like, and ultimately he was on the wrong side of that power struggle.
But why? I mean, the thing that's interesting to me, right, is last week everyone says Julie is the biggest threat to win. We got to get rid of Mama J. They fail. Julie has this big dramatic moment, plays an idol in front of the whole jury. In my mind, and in Drew's mind, that makes Julie an even bigger target. Let's get rid of Julie now.
Yeah.
But everybody else is saying no. But then everybody sort of simultaneously, except Austin, his ride or die, is saying, we need to get rid of Drew, actually. Now, what I'm curious about is this just kind of the momentum of the game that's moving? Is this a smart strategic move? I mean, in my mind, if the dynamic last week was so clearly Julie is a threat, then Julie successfully foils a move by Drew and it blows up in Drew's face. If just purely on the merits, Julie is now an even bigger threat and Drew is even less of a threat in terms of final tribal. So,
and that's certainly how Drew saw it. He felt like that. Okay, well, Emily getting idled out of the game by Julie was going to put an even bigger target onto Julie's back. So you're saying like, why did for the other votes against Drew, Dee, Katurah, Jake, why did they feel like that was the right move? Well,
is this just people being contrary to kind of like burnish their own resumes, which is sort of the narrative that we sold to us, right?
I mean, you'd have to probably look at it from each of their perspectives, or at least the Dee perspective and then the Jake Katurah perspective. From Dee's perspective, it's like, hey, Julie's my number one. And we've never heard Dee say to us, at least in confessional, of like, oh, I can't beat Julie at the end. I think Dee feels like, yeah, I'm going to beat Julie at the end. Right. It's going to be fine.
For Dee's perspective, makes total sense to flip it around, for sure.
So for Jake and Katurah, I think that both of them are, and interestingly, both of them lawyers, feel like that Drew, I think, is a very effective speaker. And I think that they feel like that they are worried that he is going to potentially be able to, like any good litigator, be able to sway a jury.
That's a very funny and interesting point that the lawyers are valuing like the quality of being of like being able to speak in front of a jury disproportionately. That's a really great observation.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if that's the only reason, but I think that maybe Katura, who I think also we have seen has like a relationship with Julie, is also feeling
And
like
Dee,
I don't know,
yeah.
like necessarily want to get rid of Julie. Maybe Dee and Julie are feeling like, okay, well, Katura is a viable third person, and maybe they're telling her that. And then for Jake, I don't know that. I think Jake is like anybody but Jake at this particular point in time. So,
It's funny though that he wanted it to be a 3-3 just to like increase the drama of
he
the
knows
moment.
one plan, Stephen.
Yeah, he was like even was aware. It's like just because you think this is exactly like the one plan I tried to pull before. Yeah, I have one idea. The
Yeah.
funny thing about this move now is that it actually would even be more disastrous than that move then because someone I saw I think on Reddit, so let's say it goes down as Jake intends. Did you already discuss this last night where
No.
you get there's 3 votes on Julie, the 3 votes on Drew. Tie vote, suddenly Drew is immune, Julie is immune, Dee has the necklace. And so the votes that
Austin
you're
played
hoping
the
to
amulet.
switch, Austin played the amulet. Literally, and so maybe Jake doesn't know about the amulet. I would imagine at this point in the game, given how many people have had knowledge of the different trinkets that that was an open secret. I would guess, but like who knows? So at this point, like truly the only people up for elimination are Jake and Katura, or the people he's hoping to, like his side. And even Austin, I mean, like even if he didn't know about Austin's amulet, still like it's a disproportionate risk for his side of the equation compared to the other side.
I think from Jake's perspective, I think that he feels like, okay, that move that he ultimately made is like what ultimately like tanked his game. And I kind of feel like that it was a little bit like, redemption, where if he does sit there in the final 3 and they're like, but Jake, didn't you make a horrible move when Caleb got voted out? Is like, yeah, but then it worked. It's almost like that he's able to not only make this big move, but also undo the other move. And it was so funny when they ended up cutting from Jake telling Katura, okay, it has to be this way, the 3-3 tie. And then her and Dee at the same time saying Drew's name and then jumping up and down. And I think that does speak to there being a relationship there with Katura and Dee. And I think that, Dee, Julie, Katura is definitely a viable final 3 that we could get coming up on Wednesday night.
Yeah. And I mean, all the more reason. I mean, so from Katura's angle, maybe voting Drew does make sense because she's got those relationships, maybe she's thinking of like, what's my big move? Although, when everyone is making the same move at the same time, it's nobody's big move. That's always the problem. Like who gets credit, right? That's always the problem for almost any move. And just in terms of getting to the end, it certainly makes a lot of sense for Katura to favor her relationships with Dee and Julie, as opposed to, we haven't seen as much of her having anything with Drew and Austin. So, for her to go to Dee and have a moment and like, let's get to the end together. And if I'm Katura, I don't think it's crazy to sit next to Dee and Julie because they kind of have a similar story and I'm someone different.
Yeah, and I don't think that Katura necessarily has like a huge resume in the game, but she has a lot of friends on the jury. And I think that she has like a great personal story that maybe she feels like that is going to be combined with that. And if Dee and Julie are splitting some of the votes, that there is a path potentially for her to win.
Yeah. So ultimately, I do think a lot of it was just pure momentum, right? It's like you're at the final 6. The default vote is Julie, and people always feel we have to just do something different. We can't just stick to the plan as it exists. We must mix it up. It's the end game. And I think I do think some of that kind of cost Drew as well.
Yeah. I want to go back to Dee because I was thinking about this earlier today. And, this was like very present over these last couple episodes, the whole storyline of Dee and Austin. And I had been really thinking about this in terms of like, was there, and I want to be very like careful about how I'm talking about this, like, but were there ever any romantic feelings that going both ways between Dee and Austin? Like, it seemed like that maybe in hindsight, Austin might have had the stronger romantic feelings for Dee. But we did have that one moment with her, with the producer.
I think that was
where-
Clark. Clark's voice. Anybody? Clark? Looks sound like Clark to me. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with a Clark type, where that they said, okay, well, you seem like you're smitten. So there definitely seems to be like that. There was
Yeah, she was totally giggly about it. It was such a cute moment.
yes. So I guess my question is like, but did she, following the episode where she's lying about voting with to save Julie, did she turn it on more, like going to the reward? Like we saw them like holding hands for the first time on the helicopter. If so, was that a strategic play, knowing what was going to come next? And if so, I want to give like even more credit to Dee, because I cannot think of another time since maybe like Parvati blindsiding James in Survivor Micronesia. I don't remember a time, whether it's a man or a woman, a person betraying their romantic interest on the island. It almost never happens.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, that's very, very, very interesting. And she didn't vote him out, to be fair. She voted his ally out.
Right.
She just didn't tell.
But even that, I don't think that, I'm trying to remember, and maybe in the chat is, the hive mind is very strong. And so like would love to like find out from like anytime that there are sort of like romantic canoodlers,
right?
How many times have they potentially like betrayed the other person in any way?
Yeah. Keith and Whitney did not betray each other.
No, it's almost like that.
David and Carolina, not even on the same season.
Not even on the same season. And so, when there's like any sort of like romantic interest, it seems like that those times that people are sort of like in lockstep. And so it's very unusual.
I guess Amanda was out of the loop on the Ozzy vote.
They wouldn't tell Amanda because they thought that she would tell Ozzy.
Yeah.
So
but again, like that's voting out someone themselves. I don't know if Dee would have voted out Austin. And well, two things. Like, first of all, I want to say, like, what a gift that we have 2 episodes back to back, 2 people as part of a romantic relationship, both faced with the exact same decision. Like, that's insanely great.
And they make
drama.
opposite choices.
And they make opposite choices. That's amazing. I mean, it's such good drama. It's such great character. Like, you could not script that. I mean, you probably could script it, but you'd have to be like a really good writer. I mean, and it was like the fact that it was like gifted to us. Holy cow, how cool. And to see Austin wrestle with this, make one decision, play with his heart, it blows up in his face. Of course, like Dee's seen that happen, so maybe that's affecting her decision too.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Austin clearly can't put that aside, and Dee can, like, that's the difference between the two of them. And maybe you're right. I mean, that my bugbear is people attributing all emotional decision making to pure strategy. I'm sure it's a mix of things for Dee. Like, is she playing up her romance with Austin, for strategic purposes? Does she feel it genuinely? There's also like, there's just this like excitement of having a romance on a show like Survivor, I would imagine. Like, you're like, we're on Survivor and we're in love,
Right.
Like, I mean, I felt that with JT, not love, but like, look at this duo, like, aren't we an oddball pair, and you get excited about your own story a little bit. And I'm sure that contributes to feelings of, strong feelings.
Well, I think for Dee, I think it's a matter of priorities. I think that priority number 1 is winning this game. And we've seen it in her flashback, the importance of her family, even though she'll swear on their lives, but is going to do that because it's more important. They're going to be happy when she ultimately wins the show. So I think that priority number 1 is, get that money, baby.
Right.
Yeah, secure the bag. That's number 1 for Dee. Number 2, and big gap, is probably going to be like romantic relationships, friendships after the game are going to be over. And I think she probably is in a position of like, okay, if it's meant to be, it'll survive this.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. I mean, and that's the better, that's certainly the better game move. And one thing that, a lot of people were saying, oh my gosh, Dee has got this game wrapped up. She's definitely going to win. I tweeted sort of like, yeah, and we all thought Jesse was going to win. And we all thought, whoever, Ricard was going to win, going into the finals. So it's not over yet. And I don't think it's over yet. But what a lot of people responded, and I was obviously being a little bit tongue in cheek, but like what a lot of people responded was, the big difference between, Jesse and Ricard and Dee is that Dee has protected her allies, whereas both Jesse and Ricard cut their allies. And I think that is the cornerstone of Dee's game, right? Is like, she's getting her way partially because she is keeping her people in the game, right? She saved Julie. You know, she's betrayed Drew, but like Drew wasn't her person. Like Austin is her person. Like she's got these tight bonds. I mean, it does seem like she has something with Katurah, right? And the fact that she is keeping her people in the game instead of cutting them at the first thought, that the first, you know, danger to herself, you know, that is what is going to, you know, potentially get her to the end. I mean, obviously, there's a very good chance she goes out at 5 as the biggest threat in the game. There's a very good chance she doesn't, you know, she doesn't make it to 4. But if she wins the game, I do think it's partially going to be because she has kept these alliances. And of course, if she loses to Julie, that was a big mistake.
Okay. Well, I think it's really interesting what the point that you bring up, as opposed to going to target the biggest targets left in the game, whether that they are in your alliance or not, as Ricard had to do with Shan and Jesse had to do with Cody. I think that what you're advocating here, the D philosophy is, no, I'm not going to necessarily target the biggest targets on the board besides myself. I'm going to target the biggest targets that are not in my inner circle. And so that I will not leave there to be a group of people that will like universally turn back around on me. Now, Austin may well, you know, but Julie, I don't see a point where Julie will ever write Dee's name down.
Right. And it is somewhat emotional. I mean, it's, you know, we say it's a less emotional game now, you know, than it used to be, or a less personal game now, but like it is still emotional. It is still personal. And this is, you know, was the success of the Tika 3 last season, right? Was that they stood by each other, you know, that they did not take easy opportunities to turn on each other. And as a result, you know, they made it to the Final 4 together. And, you know, I think that is also what has been the success of Dee and her group and you know, the Rebas generally, was that they didn't turn on each other. Now, of course, that leads to the next question, which is, was that Drew's downfall, you know, breaking this bond too soon? Like, did he, you know, by putting Julie's name out there, you know, boomerang back on him, did he just go too fast?
So I think that Drew's downfall was really like a story in 2 parts of like really the Emily boot was the first part of it. And, you know, I think that it was not really his fault what happened with the Emily boot. Like, I kind of feel like that a lot of Drew's downfall in the game, I hate to say it, but I feel like I would lay a lot of it at the feet of Austin.
Yeah. Why do you hate to say it?
Well, I feel like, one, I never like to pile on the contestants. And especially like, I feel like when, you know, they get a lot of flack online, you know, it's one thing for us to be saying on the podcast, but I never want to be like inciting people to be like, okay, people are playing poorly and making bad decisions and, you know, you idiot. Like I try not to do that when I can, where maybe like once upon a time, I might have been like a little bit more likely on a podcast to say that, because it's like, who's listening? They'll never hear this.
You're like the kinder, gentler Jeff. He doesn't want to like berate the contestants for quitting.
Yeah. So I think I can say what I need to say without necessarily like being as like, you know, pointed about it. But that being said, like, I feel like that the actions of Austin from last week's episode really put Drew in a bad spot. Now, maybe Drew was naive to sort of like feel like, okay, well, I think in some ways it's like, well, this kind of solved one problem of like, how do we get to the end with Emily of having to dismantle Reba? But now Julie has sort of like made her own bed here. And I asked him about this, and he felt like that, you know, he had said that it was kind of like a very poorly kept secret that Julie had the idol that was going to be used to take out Emily. And so it wasn't a major shock to him what happened at the last tribal council where Emily ultimately got voted out. And I think he had kind of been like at peace with it. But Emily going out was like a big piece for him. And then he just thought like, okay, well, now Julie's just made the biggest move. So obviously everybody is going to go after Julie next. And then just got a little complacent about that ultimately being the case. I'm not sure if there was a different move other than trying to earnestly put Reba back together after that vote.
Right. I mean, you just have to like go with what you think everybody's best move is for their own game, assume that they will play accordingly, and kind of like live with the consequences of those choices. So, I mean, I do think that, you know, not unreasonable assumption too. I mean, for Drew.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Jake, because I think that the most interesting domino that has to fall in the finale is going to be Jake's idol at the final 5. Okay, he has one shot to play it. He certainly is going to be playing it at the final 5. He is looking for a big move. We know his acting background, that they've told us a lot about it in the show, especially that
you've been so big on Jake the actor, that storyline.
Jake the actor. Okay. So Stephen, and you saw him last night. He had to get into his underwear, and it reminded him of like the production. Yeah. So I mean, that is kind of wild. Of, should he have committed even further? Should he have gotten like
fully nude,
buck naked? And if anybody came over, like, hey, I'm naked over here, I'm naked.
Yeah. I mean, it was all.
I mean, if you're idol hunting somewhere, and then if you just say that you're naked,
no one wants to come in.
People are like, oh, okay, let me give you your privacy. You're naked, okay.
Wow. That's such a smart, that's a new strategy, new era strategy.
Richard Hatch invented it, but now I've brought it into the modern era.
Now Jeremy actually used to go out and claim he had, GI distress, which, resonated.
Yeah, that's the oldest trick in the book.
But, then he would go hunting. Oh, I'm going off, why is that different? That's the same. You mean because Jeremy actually stripped down?
It's the aqua dump era.
Yeah.
But, just like, because you need to be in a certain area. Right. Like, it's like, well, why do you have GI distress on the raft? Could you go somewhere else? We all use that raft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, why are you naked on the raft?
Don't worry about it. Yeah. But anyway, all right. So, Stephen, what is Jake going to be coming up with in his one-man show that we'll be watching next Wednesday night?
Right. What would be the power move for Jake? Like, you're Jake, I need my big move. First of all, I've been saying for weeks and weeks, I'm not out on Jake. Now, like, at this point, I'm actually out on Jake. Like, he's the person I least expect to win the game right now. I think he's making it to the finals, and I don't think he's winning. Now that I've said that, he's definitely going to win.
Yeah.
So good for him. Congratulations, Jake.
And so,
what is the power? What would be, if you were in Jake's shoes, what is
get
the power
out D? Get out D.
Yes.
Now, that has D done such a good job, though, where is the attention still on Mama J? She's still the best player in the game. Like, he's not seeing the episodes.
I don't think, but yeah, I mean, that's the question. Like, is it clear to everyone that D is the one who pulled this move, right? Like, because you're right. Like, D pretty well couched her involvement in the Julie Idol play. And this episode, it seemed like everyone kind of unanimously wanted Drew. So that's not D's move. Like, D isn't involved in the Austin.
He didn't even want D included in the move.
Yeah. So it is a good question. Maybe it's blindsiding Mama J. Maybe that's like Jake's big resume point.
Yeah. And then that's when D goes on to win. I mean, I feel like that, to me, the biggest hurt, if D doesn't win, I think it's because Jake gets her with the idol.
Because Jake gets D with the idol.
Yes.
Yeah. And if Jake gets Julie with the idol, and then, I mean, Austin wins fire, takes D wins, the end.
I kind of,
or D wins fire.
I kind of thought that for D, if D wins the Final Four immunity challenge, like, could there be any way greater to like completely have just defanged Austin? Then I'm gonna take Austin to the final 3 also.
Yeah. And then Jake, and so Katurah is
Katurah make the final. Yeah.
Jake and that's a very interesting narrative. I like that.
Which, I think ultimately is going to result in a D win, but I feel like that if it goes wrong for D, I think it comes at Jake's idol. And I do wonder, like, if Jake is the Queen Slayer.
Yeah. Is he?
Well, just play this out, okay?
Yeah.
He plays the idol, gets D out at 5, okay? That he gets his big move.
Yeah. You think he wins on the back? I mean, like, listen, that's the new era, right? You have one flashy move. You're like, I mean, that was always the argument for Gabler, right? Like, he took out, he took out Jesse, and obviously he took out Ellie.
Yeah.
But you've got this big flashy move in front of the jury. Like, you're the latest big guy on, big guy on campus. You know, we're gonna vote
the MOC. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if Jake did that, and then hypothetically, let's just say he makes the fire at 4.
Yeah.
Not even puts himself in, he beats Julie, beats Katora in the fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
it's
don't know. I
D.
kind of feel like Julie, it sounds like, is, a big jury threat. But hypothetically, if Dee and Julie somehow go out at 5-4, I feel like that Jake, Katura, Austin,
Jake could win it.
I think Jake could be the favorite in that scenario.
That's very interesting. I mean, like, I'm going to rescind my I'm 100% out on Jake, because I've been saying for weeks I'm not out on Jake. Even when other people were out on Jake, I was saying I don't want to like lose my long-term credibility in the off chance of a Jake win.
I think he is the third most likely winner.
Right. So D, you think Julie? I honestly, like, for some reason I think Julie's unlikely, but because
I think she is the second most likely winner.
Because we've seen so much of that relationship from Dee's perspective, like it's all, I mean, in my mind, So
is there a chance? I would break it down
Katura?
like,
so where's Katura in this mix?
I would say that I think that is it crazy to say that she might be the fourth most likely winner? I think Austin is drawing. I think Austin might be drawing dead.
Yeah. I think like the last few, Austin had such a great opening and mid game, and it seems like all the stuff that he acquired, he kind of like squandered, where the one idol went to Julie, was blindsiding his plans. The other idol was sort of like it's almost like, I think it's almost like worse. I mean, I would do it if I were in his shoes, because like, I don't know, I want to be safe. But in terms of like your actual jury credibility, it's almost worse to play the idol when it's not than not to play it at all, right? Marianne held onto her idol. It was like, look at this, you guys didn't even know about this. I got this extra idol. That's the power move compared to like, I'm safe. And my best ally got blindsided because I didn't play it on him.
Right. And then also and then I had another idol, but I gave it to Julie. And then she used it when I didn't want her to, and she voted out Emily, which I didn't really want her to do that either. Yeah. But I had, at one point, I did have two idols. I guess the path for Austin is he wins the Final 5 immunity, wins the Final 4 immunity, puts himself into the fire. Like, he basically goes like a full Underwood.
Yeah.
And then ultimately like does like enough that people are like, all right, I have to give it to him. But it's hard to even envision where, and I guess he's sitting next to like Jake and Katura, and he could say like, look, at least I did these things. I won, I won immunities. They didn't win anything. I made the fire. I had idols. I was part of the alliance. Like, I think that in that scenario, like, I think that could be his win condition.
Yeah. I agree. I think like for me, I'm actually putting Katura above Jake just in terms of like pure game logic. I think Jake's story has so much been about his like failure to make the move that he's been trying desperately to make. Even this episode, so much of it was the comedy of Jake trying to make a move and like everyone else sort of like pulling the rug out from under him. So I would be surprised if Jake was our winner. More surprised than I would be if Katura,
I would have it the opposite because and solely off of the fact that Jake is the one that has the idol. So like he has he has the ability to completely upend the game. And I feel like that at this point that Katura has not fallen on her face at all in this game, in the same way that Jake has had, spectacular defeats along the way, but he also has the opportunity to flip this whole thing on its head, which Katura does not have that ability to do as far as what we know at this point.
But again, like Katura could have a run, right? She could like have 2 immunity wins or whatever, right? Like, we don't know. I mean, maybe there's always like some silly advantage at the end that she can like wave around and, know, the other, is there a chance that we get the 3-lawyer final tribal council?
Jake, Katura, Julie.
I'm so like when we were on Token Chains, we used to joke that Sandy Bergen, our Mama K, Sandy K Bergen, that she was gonna like rip off her mask at the final trial, be like, I'm Mama K, I'm like this is Sandy K, renowned socialite. I've been waiting, waiting for mask rip reveal. If someone in the final tribal, I think for so many years. Could it happen with 2 people in the same final tribal?
So I think it's hard to envision the scenario where Dee and then Austin goes out, because I think that you could easily see where one of them, like Dee, gets idled out of the game by Jake. Dee and Julie and Katura decide, hey, let's just vote out Austin. Maybe Austin goes with Jake and Katura and they vote out Dee. You could see where one of them goes out.
Yeah.
It's just hard to envision where the second one goes out at 4. Where that you would feel like that they are 1 and 2 by far
Yeah.
to potentially win immunity, especially if the other one is gone. Although we've had wacky Final Four immunity winners over the course of the new era, where people from out of nowhere. We had just last season Heidi, who's actually, probably more fit than she was in New Orleans. I woke up the next day. She's like, I ran 3 miles this morning. I was like, oh my God, Heidi.
Yeah.
But probably you wouldn't have picked her to be, necessarily the Final Four immunity winner when you drew it up. Then Romeo.
But Julie could easily win that. But it's like, let's say Jake blindsides Dee at the final 5. Julie could easily win the Final Four immunity.
Yes, and then what? And then how's Austin get? And then Austin is in the fire and loses to somebody.
Yeah, Julie's like, Julie takes Jake, or takes Katurah, and then Austin loses fire
To Jake. I mean,
Sure.
I guess it's possible. I struggle to see where Austin or Dee goes out at 4.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's likely. I agree.
So yeah,
It'll be fun.
but in the all lawyer tribal council at Final 3, I think Julie is the winner, right?
Yeah. I just think like the 2 people saying like, what you didn't know about me was that I'm a lawyer, and then like the other one's like, oh, me too. You also didn't know that about me. That'd be pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
In the scenario of the 3-lawyer finale, would it be worthwhile for Julie Couture to reveal that their attorneys during Final Tribal Council, or more powerful to make your case without it? I think it's like is it better to be the second fake lawyer to reveal?
No, I think at the point where the first lawyer reveals, you're like, yeah. Although, like, I guess you kind of like pull, get the that'd be a funny moment.
Yeah. Nobody would believe you. Where it was like you're the second lawyer to reveal. It's like,
exactly. Like, really? Like, it would
like,
feel a little bit dubious.
Well, actually, I'm a lawyer too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be very funny. But would you want to, I think like as many reveals as you can do during the final tribal. And the question is like, is it better to tell them or not tell them? I think you say everything. Like, you're like, and guess what? Like, this whole game, I've been carrying this special charm in my pocket, and that's the secret of my success. I mean, like, you want as many like big secrets to come out. It makes you feel like you've got this whole world that they didn't know.
Are there any rules on this where, you at the Final Tribal Council, could you just like pathologically lie? And it's like, what you didn't know was that I had an advantage this whole game, and the advantage told me that, or I had a disadvantage this whole game. At any point, if somebody would have just said my name 3 times, I would have been voted out. And none of you, I got all of you to never do that. And it's kept me safe this entire game. You never knew it.
Yeah, that would be such a strong power move, like the fake beware advantage. And I got this on day 1. I pulled it off the shipwreck. It's been with me, the albatross around my neck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start to take some questions, Stephen, from the audience. Tanya asks us, does Austin have to just look past the fact that Dee lied to him? Does he have anywhere else to go?
Well, I feel like with Final 5, you can go anywhere. There's no sense of.
Is he the swing vote at the Final 5 now?
Maybe he is. Maybe Jake and Katurah say, Austin, like, come with us. They just blindsided your buddy. Like, let's take them out now. And does he do that? I feel like it's fixable for Dee. I think she can go back to him and say, obviously we saw what a great actor she was.
I'm sorry.
Did I do that? Yeah.
Let me ask you the important question, Stephen. Is the showmance dead?
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like Austin's so in. Oh, really? You think he's so betrayed?
I think that's
because he made the exact opposite. I just told you about your ally.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's it. That's it.
I have long-term hope for these lovebirds. They're both 26.
They're both 26.
Yeah.
I think that they'll both be fine, but I think that for all of the shippers out there, I think the ship has sailed.
Wow. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Love is dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Austin and Dee. Marcella says, since Austin and Drew were the Steven and JT of the season, with Drew's downfall in the game, was Drew's downfall in the game trusting Austin too much, or was it something else?
Drew's downfall in the game, I mean, maybe relying on Austin, but like, again, like, what did he do wrong here? Right? Like, truly, what did he do wrong? Yeah.
For Drew?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, like, maybe he didn't manage the vote as well as he could. Maybe he lost sight of, but it sounded like he kind of in a sense, like if it's me, Austin will play his idol for me. And I
yeah.
mean, maybe he's relying on Austin more than trusting Austin. Austin
Yeah,
didn't betray him.
So I like to ask the Survivor contestants on the exit interviews, like, well, what would you have done differently? I asked him, like, where did it all go wrong? He said that he felt like that he had some conversations, that there were some moments at Tribal Council. I think his regret was that he didn't push harder for Austin to play. Like, he started to have, like, the sense that he was going to go out at that Tribal Council. He wishes that he would have pushed Austin harder to use the amulet based off of some of the reads he was getting at Tribal.
That's hard. I mean, I've literally been in that position where you're like, oh my God, it's me. And like, what can I do about this? But like, you can't like, if you stand up in the middle of Tribal and you're like, hey, give me the idol, like it can switch on to Austin, suddenly you're like, and yeah, I mean, I hear that. I hear that very, very much. You get these, you do get a sense.
What about after the votes? Everybody's voted. Can he stand up and say like, dude, I'm telling you, it's like, I need it.
Yeah, that actually would have been a very strong move.
But if you're wrong, it's like basically
it's great for him, terrible for Austin.
Well, if you're wrong, like you basically your winning chances are just totally down the drain.
Why? Either way, you're
in front of the jury. You're like, dude, I need the idol. Like, I'm in trouble. Like, you got to save me. I'm telling you.
You've seen people do that and be wrong.
We had Malcolm and and Reynolds. Yeah.
Right. Well, but like that ends up looking like a power move for Malcolm, right? Like, doesn't that look like more of a power move for Drew, getting your ally to play an idol on you and you don't even need it?
Okay. This is an interesting question from Darlene, who says, is the D edit too obvious? Okay, well, you can read that two different ways.
That is sort of like, I do think going into so many of these episodes or, season finales, there was this one player who you thought this person is winning. I mean, that was Jesse, right? That was Ricard. I mean, less a Ricard thing, but like with Jesse, like I was like, oh my gosh, Jesse's going to win. He's like the mastermind of the season. And I do think there is a little bit of that with D, and I do think they sort of like a last minute rug pull. With Jam Jam though, we were right. Like Jam was seemed to be the. I mean, a lot of people thought Caroline was going to win,
and Carson. It was the three of them. It was really just like Atika will win, but which one? I think was the question.
Right. That's right. I mean, so I don't think, and I do think, after Gabler, right, there was a lot of criticism of Survivor where people were saying, I didn't see this win coming. Like, where did this person come from? Like, what the heck? And Jeff at the time responded and said, we didn't do our job. Like, we didn't tell you the story of how this person got to the end and won. And so I do think with Jam Jam and maybe now with Dee, we're seeing more of a deliberate crafting of a story. We'll find out. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. I think it'll be very interesting. I feel like that Dee's got it. I would say, what am I? I think I'm like, what? So I'd say about like 65% D at this point.
Yeah.
Definitely biggest piece of the pie. Definitely more than half. But, I think that there's a couple of other outs that could still happen. Okay. How about a question from Sarah, who says, what do you think of the fact that Reba decided to go after one of their own at the final 7? Was that too early? It seems to have started a chain reaction. Now everyone needs Couture and Jake's votes to have a majority. Should the Rebas have finished the job, Stephen?
I mean, again, I don't think so, honestly. Like it depends. Look, if Jake wins, they should have finished the job, or Couture wins, yes. But I do think you reach a point in the season where you've eliminated you've got this dominant group, you've eliminated the big six. I mean, it does, because of this final 4 fire making, you have a couple of votes to get rid of the people who are going to beat you at the jury. I would want to, right? If you're playing to win, you're not playing to sit in the finals and lose. That sucks. So I do think you need to take the few shots you have to get out the people you perceive to be the biggest jury threats.
Stephen, John wants to know, Stephen always seems honed in on who has 5th place energy. Who is it this time?
Gosh, I really don't know. I one of the things I've loved so much about this season is that I have had zero idea what's happening, or what's going to happen. And it's been such a joy. And I think that's the 90 minutes, is that we've had such rich content from everybody that you can't really say, this one player has been somewhat I mean, and somewhat irrelevant to the story or somewhat. And listen, I've certainly been wrong about who had fifth place energy. I said Cassie, right? So that was wrong. So
Yeah, I think the problem was we can't really define what fifth place energy is.
well, there was a period, and look, I do feel like in the 30 Survivors edits got very predictable, and there was a period where the first person eliminated in the finale was sort of this like totally, you got almost no content from them, so they were this like they were there, good for them, but like there would not really seen kind of like making moves or doing things, so it became sort of this like nothing spot. And also in the late 30s, I felt like it became very easy to guess the winner based on their episode 1, and I do think that's changed significantly, and I think that's for the better of the show, and especially with 90 minutes. So fun. We get so much content from everybody.
But I will say that I think there is a through line on the fifth place edit. I feel like that it's somebody that the show really does showcase. I mean, in the new era, the fifth place people have been Ricard, and then Lindsay, and then it was Carla, and then it was Lauren last season, and all of them like got like a big send off. In
Lauren did not have a big. I mean, Lauren had like
she had a big send off, certainly.
Well, right, but in terms of like going into the finale, she was, I think, the most prototypical, what I would call, kind of that fifth place energy, that sort of first boot of the finale energy, where you're like, we've like sort of disproportionately not seen this person.
Yeah, but I think all of them had they reached the end, like had a lot of people on the jury that would have voted for them. So I do think that they have that through line in common as well. If I was going to say who's that person, I think it's Julie.
Yeah, I kind of agree.
Little under-edited,
Julie was
has like the people like, oh, but she's beloved. I could see her getting like the big like sentimental sappy music for Mama J.
Totally. I really agree with you. Like, that's a great call for like what a fifth place boot would be today. Again, I don't think it's Lauren is a great example, but you'd be like sort of like under edited, like Julie, who seems to be this like dominant person in the game. One of the core members of the core group.
Jake plays his idol. It goes on Julie, and then that's it. And Jake's like, "That was the big move. That was the kill shot."
And he wins.
Now D wins.
Yeah, D wins.
Yeah. All right. Stephen, here's a question about you.
Oh,
Adam writes in to say, this has been the best season of the new era. Wow. And also Stephen's best season of Know-It-Alls.
Wow. Best ever? That can't be true.
Does he find podcasting later helps him bring more or earlier, I guess in this case, more humor and insight?
Like later after the show. Well, I do miss being first, as I've repeatedly said, because again, I can take my.
Hold on, let me finish the question though. Okay. How does he find the motivation to reach new levels of greatness this many years in?
Who's Adam? Oh, is that my alt? Did I send in this question while like late at night, like under a sleeping pill?
Stephen Fishbach asked.
Yeah, exactly. I will say there's a big difference between being able to have a cup of coffee right before we podcast and during a podcast.
Sure.
And not, because like, we're podcasting at 11 at night. Like, I'm not drinking coffee. I got to go to bed right after. I'm tired. I've had a long day of whatever it is I do.
Yeah. I mean, that's really only the finale night is 11.
Yeah, but I mean, even so, it was like 9. I mean, now, like, 9 is the new 11.
9 is the new 11.
Listen, I'm done by 9.
Yeah. All right, Stephen. Anything else on your mind as we head towards the finale?
Let's see.
Fishy award this week.
I think you got to give it to Dee, right? Dee, just sort of her. It's either Jake for his mastermind move or Dee for her stone cold strategy. I think we got to do Dee.
Okay. Did you have any other interesting tweets about Survivor this week?
I don't think so. Just that I was bummed that Drew left. I like Drew. I thought Drew was great. And he was such a fun narrator. Like, he had great kind of overview. He got like great strategic overviews of the situation at hand. They always went to Drew.
Yeah.
I'm not out on Drew as a returnee. I think Drew's a totally viable returnee.
I'm with you on. I really like Drew.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be like first like ballot returnee.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right, Stephen, 1 week from now, we'll know the winner of Survivor 45. Wow. We'll get to talk about all of that. I'll have exit interviews with the entire cast, and we'll be ready to put Survivor 45 to bed next week.
Wow. What will we talk about then?
Then we probably won't talk for 3 months.
Wow.
You'll have your birthday.
Oh, Oh, that'll be nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And then we'll reconvene. I believe it's February 28th premiere for Survivor 46. So we'll talk on what, March 1st?
That sounds great. I really look forward to it.
Okay.
March 1st. Gosh, spring.
Spring. Yep.
Yeah.
Spring will have sprung. All right. So then I will get back together with Mike Bloom on our feedback show coming up on Monday. You can send questions in. Go to survivorpods.com to get the feedback form there. And then for the patrons, I'll be talking with Sasha Joseph on the Survivor patron Q&A tomorrow at 3 p.m. I have my exit interview already up with Drew if you want to check that out. And then tonight, Stephen, do you have any awareness? Could you tell me what is Reindeer Games?
Something to do with Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
Is Derek hosting?
Derek X is one of the hosts.
Yeah. I follow him on Instagram.
I know you are a big Derek X fan.
And Claire, they're so cute.
Yes.
Yeah, I love them.
Have you ever had any real interaction with them? No.
No.
Yeah.
It's totally parasocial relationship.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But it's a great relationship for me.
Yeah, they're very fun. They were with us in California, so they're just two of the best. Tim also says in the chat that it's going to be February 29th for the day after the premiere.
Oh gosh, it was spooky.
A leap day, know-it-all.
Leaping into the new season.
Yes, we'll leap right in. Okay, so that'll be very fun. So all right, Reindeer Games will be back tonight. We also had a very fun interview, Stephen, with Trey and Leanne from Squid Game.
Oh, I really want to listen to that.
Yeah, that was Chappelle and I talked to them. They were super fun.
I can't wait.
Lots of laughs. It's a real quick listen. It's like 45 minutes. So check that out. All right.
2x speed. That's only 22 minutes.
Boom. Bang it out. All right. Stephen, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.